This card tonight is on Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. We finished the Job and Psalms card last week, and what we're trying to get through these cards. We've got to finish the Old Testament by the end of the year, and so we're doing some of this a lot more rapidly than we did the first time we went through this, but hopefully you've got your field manual. If you already have these cards, you can look at them tonight and just leave them in the back. If you've already got them at home and your field manual from before, you don't need an extra set, but you can leave those there, but you can have those because we're going to be walking through these cards tonight. So let me ask you some questions as those are coming around by way of review. Who is the first king of Israel? So like 3 people knew that. So, okay. So now that everybody else has heard the 3 people give you the answer, let's try this again. Who was the first king of Israel? Saul. Okay. Very nice. Who was the second king of Israel? David. So more people knew David than knew Saul. That's typical. David's a better name than Saul anyway. So you got first king of Israel, Saul. Second king of Israel is David. Third king of Israel is who? Solomon. Who asked for wisdom? Solomon. Who was the wisest man? Solomon. Who built the temple? Solomon. Who wrote most of the Proverbs? Solomon. Who wrote most of the Proverbs? Solomon. Now, let me ask the question that was answered. Who wrote most of the Psalms? David. Okay. Now the question. Who wrote most of the Proverbs? Solomon. Who wrote Ecclesiastes? Solomon. Who wrote Song of Solomon? What was the gender of Saul? Solomon. You were answering Solomon all the way through, and all you had to do, Alice was the only one who liked that joke. Everybody else didn't get it. What was the gender of Saul? Solomon. So you just keep answering Solomon, and you're good to go. All right? Now, how are we doing on getting these cards around? What is the book of Proverbs about? We're going to do this prophet, priest, and king. That's the order of these cards. So I want you to get your cards. What was the book of Proverbs about? The book of Proverbs contains what? Wise sayings of spiritual truths. Have you seen that to be true as you've read through them? There are hundreds and hundreds of wise sayings of spiritual truths. Are you done with those? Thank you, sir. So as you go through that, is this not a great book to read with your children? Is this not a great book to read as a family? To learn wise sayings. We've got all sorts of wise sayings that are around. You can go to Facebook and you can get all sorts of wise sayings on Facebook, or boy, there's a whole lot of wise sayings on Twitter. But where's a great place to go and look for wise sayings? How about the Bible, and how about the book of Proverbs? And so what was the purpose of the book of Proverbs? To know wisdom and instruction. That's what Solomon, who wrote the book, most of the Proverbs here, tells us is the purpose of the book of Proverbs, is so that we can know wisdom and instruction. So I want to walk through some of these with you, all right? These are some of my favorite cards because when we designed these, we just took Proverbs about a subject and we threw them on a card. And there's some good Proverbs that we need to memorize, and that's the purpose of these being laid out this way, is so that you can memorize them and you can quiz your kids on these. So let's look at the Proverbs about the tongue. Does anybody need any good verse about controlling the tongue? Anybody need a good verse about being able to control what we say? The heart of the righteous studies what? How to answer. He doesn't just open his lips and just flap them and just say whatever comes to his mind. He thinks first. He studies how to answer. He who answers a matter before he studies it, he who answers a matter before he hears it is what? Folly and shame. Y'all with me on the prophet card? It's folly and shame. If I don't hear out a matter and I start flapping my gums and talking, it is folly and shame to me. One of the best Proverbs memorized, Proverbs 15 and verse 1. Soft answer does what? Turns away wrath. Have you seen that to be proven to be true? You respond with a soft answer. The questions that are highlighted, that have kind of a gray background to them, are the ones that we think would be especially good for the little kids to learn on this prophet card. A harsh word stirs up what? So what a contrast there. Soft answer turns away wrath. But if you want to respond with a harsh answer, what's that going to do? Stir up your anger. Whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from trouble. Is that true? Everybody got a prophet, priest, and king card? Did we get them around? All right, did the guys get them there? Excellent. Hope so. All right. Go down to these ones about lying. Lying lips are what? An abomination to the Lord. Do lying lips sink ships? Is that a proverb? Is that in the Bible? But do lying lips sink ships? Sounds good, right? Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. A false witness will not go unpunished. That's a good thing for our kids to learn. Turn the page. Go to the next side. We're not going to look at all of these. Proverbs about man and his relationship to God. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. Is that a scary verse? It can be a scary verse if you want to make it a scary verse. Can it be a comforting verse? Hopefully that's what it is. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. The Lord is far from who? But He hears the prayers of who? Right. Drop down a little bit. Happy is the man who is always eating. Happy is the man who is always reverent. Sometime go over to Titus chapter 2 and look at the word reverent over in Titus chapter 2 and look and see who's supposed to be reverent. And here's a proverb that says, happy is every person who is reverent. Look at the highlighted section. Do not add to what? Did you think that was only in the book of Revelation? Did you think it was only in Revelation 22 where the Bible says don't add to these words? Here it is back in the book of Proverbs. We saw it when we came to the book of Deuteronomy. God says, don't add to my words. Do not turn to the right or to the left. That applies to your Christian walk and has nothing to do with your driving. All right? You turn in the proper places. Here's a verse to memorize. There is a way that seems right, but its end is the way of death. Is that a good verse for you to just to know when you're at work, when you're at school, when you're around people that may not care a whole lot about the Bible, who just say, it seems like this would be a good thing to do, and you can think, there's a way that seems right. And you might even share this verse with them because they might have seen that these things are true in life. Go down to the next highlighted section. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it what? Spring the issues of life. I like this next one. Where there is no counsel, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, when I seek counsel from multiple people, there is safety. Buy the truth and do not sell it. All right, how about some proverbs about children? Here are some proverbs to quiz your kids on. Let your father and your mother be glad. Diane, you ought to just quiz them on the way. I'm sure they would love it. They would love it if you're driving down the road and you're just holding this up in front of the windshield and saying, let your father and your mother be glad. And I'm sorry I even mentioned that as a possibility. Taylor, I'm sorry. I should not have even said that your dad should do that. Oh well, can't take it back. All right, a wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a fool despises his father's instruction. A foolish son is a grief to his father. Huh? And a bitterness to his mother. He who mistreats his father and his mother brings shame and reproach. I like this one from the ESV on the next one. The eye that mocks father and disobeys mother will be picked out by the ravens and eaten by the vultures. Now that is a verse to quiz your kids on. That's a verse to print out on 11 by 17, laminate it, and smack it on front of the refrigerator. That's a verse to wake your children up in the morning and say, the eye that mocks father and disobeys mother will be. Just learn it. What a verse. Picked out by the ravens and eaten by the vultures. All right, go to the priest card. We're going to come back to that one in just a second. Go to the priest card. Some great proverbs about friends. The righteous should choose his friends. Is that a verse we need to know? We need to choose our friends carefully. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. There's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens his friend. Do you have good friends? When you read through those Proverbs about friends, do you have good friends? Look around. Look around this auditorium. Is there a friend who sticks closer than a brother, to use that expression, in this room? Do we have friends in here who are like iron that help to sharpen us and strengthen us? That's what Christian friends are all about. Are there any proverbs about drinking? Who has woe, sorrow, contentions, wounds, and redness of eyes? People who linger long at the wine. That just sounds appealing. You know what I want? I want woe and sorrow and contentions and wounds and redness of eyes. I want all of those things. Great. Anybody ever say that? Nobody ever says that. But that's what people have who linger long at the wine. So God says, do not look on the wine when it is red and sparkling and swirling around smoothly. Proverbs 20 and verse 1, wine is that's a verse we need to memorize. Strong drink is a brawler. So those are good things for us, right? The NIV says, whoever is led astray by wine and beer is not wise. Is that verse in the Bible? That's in the Bible. Led astray by wine and beer is not wise. Do we need some other verse in the Bible to talk to us about alcohol besides that one? That verse says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by that is not wise. Go to the next page on parenting. Here's some good ones for you. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Chasten your son while there is hope. Child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Correct your son, and he will give you. Have you found that to be true? Why doesn't that say correct your daughter, and she will give you rest? Maybe God knew there was a difference between sons and daughters and didn't want to challenge the parents of daughters too much. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will do what? Drive it far from him. He who spares his rod hates his son. Can you imagine? We live in a world today that says, don't spank your children. The Bible's, please don't. Why is it that people, when we talk about spanking, want to talk about abuse? Spanking done properly is not abuse. He who spares his rod hates his son. So we look in our child's face who is disobeying us, and rather than spank them, we look in their face and we say, I hate you. That's what it says. You spare the rod, you hate the child. That's what the Bible says. He who loves his son disciplines him promptly, doesn't wait around. Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with the rod, that's in the Bible, y'all. It's not talking about abuse. It's talking about proper discipline. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell. Are there some homes that need that within them? Look down at the talking too much section. In the multitude of words, sin is not lacking. He who has knowledge spares his words. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. Boy, that guy is brilliant. And then he opens his mouth. Not so much anymore. What about the Proverbs about gossip? He who repeats a matter separates friends. Have you ever seen that to be true? A whisperer separates even the best of friends. Look at the last one. Where there is no wood, the fire goes out. What does that mean? It's talking about gossip. What does that mean? Where there is no wood, the fire goes out. If you don't pick it up and carry it along, and that's in the book of that's in Psalms. If you don't pick up the tale, if you don't pick up the rumor, if you don't pick up the gossip, the other GOS book, if you don't pick up the gossip and carry it along, what will happen to it? Where there is no wood, the fire dies. Good answer, buddy. David knows that. We can know that. Go back to your prophet card. I wish we had time to look at these proverbs about money on the king card, but lots of good stuff there. You know what? Go to the king card real quick. There's a lot of good stuff about money. A lot of good proverbs about money. Good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. The generous soul will be made rich. Do you know if you give, you won't lose? You'll be made rich. Do not overwork to be rich. What does that say about priorities? What does that say about the priority of our job? Do we need to have a job? Yes. Do I need to overwork in order to be rich? Not according to the Bible. Look down. No, go to the next page. Go to the next page on husbands and wives. We talked about children. We talked about parents. Now let's look at Proverbs about husbands and wives. He who finds a wife finds. Don't listen to them over there. They don't know what they're talking. They don't know. They were teaching David good answers. They were, up until that point, teaching David good answers. I'm not listening to things that are coming from that side of the room for right now. The wise woman builds what? Her house. Does that mean like she lays the brick and she puts in all the wood and puts the roof on? Is that what it's talking about? Is that talking about her home? A lovely woman who lacks discretion is like a ring of gold in a swine's snout. Isn't that pretty? That's exactly where a ring of gold belongs, right? Better to dwell. I don't want to hear any amens after this. It's just the end. Better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. Better to be in the corner of a housetop than to be in there. Husbands are told, rejoice with the wife of your youth. And then there's a lot of good miscellaneous proverbs down in the bottom about being lazy, about showing partiality, and all sorts of good. All right, go back to the prophet card real quick. Inside your prophet card, I've got just a few minutes. Inside your prophet card, that's the book of Proverbs. What's the book of Proverbs? Wisdom, knowledge, instruction. So much there. Some of you have told me that you read through the book of Proverbs one chapter a day in September. Somebody told me they restarted, or in August, and somebody said they restarted it again in September. What a great practice. I know one family that they would get in the car to take the kids to school, and they would listen to a chapter from the book of Proverbs, whatever day it was. They'd listen to, what is today? The day's the 12th? Well, we don't have school today, so tomorrow's the 13th. So they would get in the car and they would listen to chapter 13 of Proverbs on that day, and it would take like 3 or 4 minutes on the way to school, and then they would listen to the rest of their music and stuff. But what a great thing to get those things inside, write those things on our heart. Now, what's the book of, this is inside your prophet card. What is the book of Ecclesiastes about? Solomon's search for what? For the meaning of life. There's a lot of good books out there about the meaning of life. No, actually, that's not true. There's a lot of bad books out there about finding the meaning of life. So Solomon goes searching for the meaning of life. Where did he not find it? Go down 2 questions after that. Where was the meaning of life not found? Human wisdom, wealth, power, and pleasure. Wait a minute. Isn't that where everybody looks for it? I mean, that's where everybody looks for the meaning of life. But where was the meaning of life found? Fear God, keep His commandments. He got all the way to the end. And this is down in the shaded section down below. Solomon got all the way to the end. And his conclusion in the next to last verse in the book, his conclusion is the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep His commandments. Solomon said, remember now your Creator when? In the days of your youth. Go real quick to the priest card. We're going to come right back to the prophet card. I think there's one thing I wanted to see on the priest card about First question about Ecclesiastes on your priest card. What is the description of all of life without God? All is vanity. How many times is that found in the book of Proverbs? Vanity is found more than 30 times. What's the book of, not Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. What's the book of Ecclesiastes about? Back on your prophet card. What's it about? Search for the meaning of life. And what did Solomon keep saying as he was searching for the meaning of life? Anytime I find meaning of life and God's not there, it's vanity. What does that mean? What does vanity mean? Is that where you put your makeup on in the morning? Is that meaning of life? It's to sit at the... What does that mean? Say it again. Okay, it's superficial. What does it mean? Life, all is vanity. Useless. It's pointless. It has no value at all if God is not there. Okay, last question. Next to last question. Go back to your prophet card. What is the book of Song of Solomon about? It is talking about marital love. It is talking about the pure love that is in marriage. If you want the best book out there on marriage, there's a lot of good ones. A lot of men have written good books in the last 20, 30 years about marriage. If you want the best book out there on marriage, read the book of Song of Solomon. It'll open your eyes as to what God wants to take place in marriage. The book of Song of Solomon is about pure love in marriage. And there's two questions on the priest card about the book of Song of Solomon. The husband adores the beauty of his wife, and he desires her. The wife adores the beauty of her husband, and she desires him. And when you read the book of Song of Solomon, they really did adore each other, and they really did desire each other in every way possible inside of a marriage. And a very rapid form, that's Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Next week, what we're going to do, here's what we've done. Give me 2 minutes here. Here's what we did. We taught through the books of history, right? No, back up. We taught through the books of Moses. Remember what the books of Moses are? 5 of them? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We taught through those 5 books. And then we got, after that, to the books of history. What's the first book of history? Joshua. So we started with Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Then we got to 1 Samuel. What's 1 Samuel about? The first king of Israel, who was Saul. What's 2 Samuel about? Second king of Israel, who was David. We got to 1 Kings, and this was our teaching through Soldiers of Christ. We got to 1 Kings, and 1 Kings is about the third king of Israel, who was Solomon. But we only taught through the first 11 chapters. We only covered the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings. Why? Because when Solomon dies, the kingdom is divided. And so what we did, we taught all the way through Solomon, and then we broke off to teach the books of poetry. The 5 books of poetry, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to jump back into the books of history. And we will pick up, we'll give you a brand new green card. The green cards are the history cards. We'll give you a brand new history card next week. The books of history we'll pick up with the divided kingdom. And we'll start looking at what happened when Solomon died and the kingdom was divided. And we will start marrying into that discussion of the divided kingdom the prophets and where the prophets fit. So we will start that next week. Thank you all very much for your good attention tonight.